Will Madam Secretary call the Policy and Governance Subcommittee?
Chairperson Doherty.
Here.
Mr. Conway.
Here.
Mr. Rossi.
Here.
Three present.
I know tonight our agenda is to look at some specific LPS policies with recommendations from the Mass Association of School Committee. I don't know if Ms. Phillips, if you want to start the meeting.
Sure. So yes, we are going to discuss some of the policies that have been updated. There's also the crosswalk that was conducted by MASC of other HR policies, a whole section of HR policies. And then there's a question of how do we want to move forward with the current policy section. We'll be meeting once a month.
So generally what happens with when we do a whole section is we recommend that committees, the subcommittees, accept approve in form section, and then when we get to the end, you approve all the sections at the same time. We've started, because we started last time, by pulling out some policies that were very important to update right away, and we're gonna do that again tonight. We can do that and send those policies forward for immediate adoption, but generally what we recommend is for a whole section. You send it to the full committee for them to approve in form, and then when all of the sections are done, you adopt all of the sections at once. That way you don't have something in A that conflicts with something in K, just that we keep it all nice and neat and lined up.
So what we've already approved, was that in form or was that we approved visitation, school committee interaction with school department personnel and schools?
Yeah.
Was that, I thought we accepted those completely.
And you sent them to us so that we could put them into the online policy manual right away. So there were a handful of HR policies that did get approved separately. That's fine. And then what we could do is go forward with the rest of section G in form.
Okay.
You've already adopted. So anywhere along the way where you feel like there's one that you really need to pull out and address right away, especially if there's been an MGL change, we can pull those out and you can approve those right away. And then you would just adopt in form as we go forward.
Okay. So do we have a motion doing that or?
If you feel like section G is ready, because we have already talked about section G in one of your subcommittee meetings, so if you're ready to send that to your full committee, you would make a motion to send it to the full committee for a first reading to approve in form. That everything.
So how is that going to be
That's
presented? though?
all of section G. It would
So are they
go-
going to present, just so the woman who knows it's going to make the agenda, is she going to have to then do every policy?
No, you
on
can
the
just
floor?
say section G as presented in the documents provided. So the document goes into whatever document, what's your document manager process? Do you get them directly? Do you have?
They're posted online and we get them hard copy.
So because they're posted online, you can say, it will go for a first read as listed in the documents online. So you don't have to sit there and read every single one. You just say, we're section G as posted.
What do you think? Do you understand that?
I have a question.
I think,
What if there's, is that a certain section of G that agrees with now, block that out, like as a full committee?
You can, yep.
That
Yep.
either we could, one of them go to some.
Absolutely. So when the committee goes up for a first read, if there's anything that the full committee wants to spend more time on, think of it sort of like a consent agenda. You put up the whole section, and if there's anything you want to pull out, you can pull those out to the side. Still approve the rest of them in form, not for immediate adoption, for adoption after the whole policy manual is finished, and then you can address those individual policies. At any point in time, you can pull an individual policy from the process and we can fast track it, or you can send it back to the subcommittee. Absolutely.
So if I'm understanding our last subcommittee, we looked at all of section G, right? And we said wherever Lowell public school language was outdated or different, we went with the MASC language because that's been updated, it conforms with the new regulations. So what we would then be doing with section G is just putting it forward to the whole school committee to approve in form. But if anyone at any point, like Alicia said, had a problem with any section, we could pull that up.
Just a quick clarification. We bring in the city solicitor to take a look at that before we actually vote.
You absolutely can.
We can, we have.
I'm just wondering.
You don't have to. There are certain places where I will tell you, hey, you should have your legal counsel look at it.
Right,
We
that's
talk
what
about
I
Title IX policies. I'm gonna send you back to your legal counsel.
On the what?
The Title IX policies,
Oh, yeah.
the anti-discrimination policies that we're talking about tonight.
So that's on the
Yeah.
agenda for tonight.
I will most definitely send you back to your district counsel.
Right.
I wanna make sure that they have eyes on it.
Yeah, because I don't want to.
Right.
But I know that MASC has had their legal counsel advise.
I know that, but it's not bad to have one.
Oh, yeah, no.
No, and I think that where she recommended, we should absolutely do it. I don't know that we need to send it all, but, that's the will of the
I
body.
would also say that's where you lean on your superintendent. And you say, are there any policies here that you feel that legal counsel should look at? As we go through certain sections, when we get to section, I think it's D, finance, yep. You're gonna want your business official, your school business official to look at that. When we get to section E, which is student services, your director of student services, special education, ELL, whoever all of these people are, you're gonna want them to look at that too. So there will be places where I say to you, please have administration table.
And one other, this probably is a stupid question, so I apologize. Well, if all of a sudden we decide, after we've accepted certain sections, thank you. We realize that there is an issue or a problem, whatever it is, and we have to change that or amend it or something. Is something like that happen?
It may, there's always a chance that an MGL could come out, especially since these ballot questions this year, that could affect policy.
So that's what I'm saying.
Yep. If we're still in the process and you haven't approved it in form, and you've approved it in form, and you haven't accepted the entire policy manual yet, you can just bring it back to the subcommittee will take a look at it again, and send it back up to the full committee.
Yeah, I'm just trying to get a little safe about it.
Yep. And we try to, and NASC tries to flag those things for you as well. When we get the results of the ballot question, if it has policy implications, we will then work with our legal counsel and NASS and see, if there's language we need to.
Thank you.
I just have a quick question
But
in terms of and I'm not sure if this is exactly section G where it would be, but where we talked about maybe Lowell residents having a priority to interview, is that a place that would want to have that live in here, or would that be somewhere else?
we did discuss that resident piece, and I believe the advice was not to have that.
That is my understanding as well. And I believe you approved some standalone hiring policies at the full committee, and that was one of those.
Right.
Okay, my apologies. Thank you for the clarification.
And that was a very good question, because I had a motion looking for more information in terms of how many people have been impacted by that policy, which we didn't get that. I didn't get that. So we've already taken that out, made that adjustment.
Yeah.
So at this point,
So, I think the, let me here. Well, I have a question about if we send it to the full committee. So I'm looking at this, and so for the second one, equal opportunity,
Yeah.
and I think we already approved this, but I'm wondering when it says L and then it says MASC, are we recommending that we go with MASC? Is that going to be the recommendation? Whereas if it only says L, you're reading it and you're you're just making any updates in the L policy? It's Lowell.
L is Lowell, and I'm looking now to see, the crosswalk that I sent you, but I'm not seeing where I sent you the with changes version. I don't see that in my open email. So did I not send?
I didn't do that, there's just gotten the crosswalk.
Okay, so then what we're gonna do is we're gonna hold on section G.
Okay.
We're not gonna do G tonight, we'll do G at the next meeting. And I will have that for you. What I will have is, I can show you what it looks like. Actually, you've seen it tonight. So the policies that we're gonna review tonight, the handbook, et cetera, what you'll get from me will look like that. For some reason, I thought we'd already done that, but not. Okay, so we're gonna start with this. And what you'll get from me is the index, which is the crosswalk. It will have my recommendation, and then it will have all of the changes. And I will insert the ones you have previously approved from section G that you pulled out. I will reinsert those so that next time we go over all of section G all at once.
So what we would have in our packet is something like this
For
for section G.
Yep.
What, Mary?
I just haven't, and sure if this is how it's done, it's just, and not to say that it's not right, it's just never been done this way in Lowell before.
Yes.
And my concern is for transparency purposes, people aren't actually seeing these policies that the committee's voting for in form.
Right.
So I'm wondering if we could do it in a way that we continue to approve the policies that are here on the floor, that we're actually putting a hard copy on the floor. And then maybe at the end of the whole process, we vote on the policy book, with said changes in past policies that have, policies approved in the past as a whole.
That is how you do that. That is exactly how you do it.
Right.
So what happens is,
So this inform thing, I just think,
so it's, okay, let me back up. So what happens is we get a section of the policy subcommittee. We go through and we go through my recommendations, we go through your edits and the recommendations from the administration. The policy subcommittee votes to send it to the full committee for a first read. When the first read and the second read are done, the full committee then approves it in form, not for adoption. They approve it in form and it's held. And then all of the other sections get approved the same way. And when you're done with all of them, you approve your new policy manual and rescind all of the others and replace it with the new policy manual. In that process, so next time when we do section G, we will have the draft here. It'll have all my notes, much like the policies we're going to talk about tonight. And then I will send you, once you are done with it, you're ready to send it to the full committee. I will send you the changes we talked about, and I will send you a clean copy. And both of those will go into the packet for the full committee. So wherever the public sees those things, that's where they will go. So the whole committee will get to see both changes and the clean version of it. And then they will sit there until we're ready to approve all of the policy columns. That makes sense.
So if the full book is not approved for 2 years, these are, whatever is currently
it's
uploaded is what we're following until
Yeah.
they end up,
Which is
with
why
the
it's
exception of the pullout.
yes, with the exception of the pullout, it's your old policy manual with the exception of the pullout policy.
So why is that better than?
right, why are we doing it
Approving
in
as
form?
we go?
Right,
There are some districts who do approve it section by section. It's a little bit more complicated if you have a policy in, like, say, in section G. Actually, in section G, there's a policy, thank you, that is also in section, I want to say, E. There's a communications policy that lives in 2 places, and it's the exact same policy in 2 places. So the concern for approving section by section is you don't want a policy in section A that conflicts with policy in section C. You don't want to have 2 policies that say 2 different things out there. If you want to approve them as we go section by section, and there are districts that do, we just need to be very careful that we're not saying something in one section that contradicts something that lives in another section, because we want to make sure we're not putting you in that place of,
Which the policy they're contradicting. So let me ask you, there's a policy in G.
Yeah.
that also shows up somewhere else. Do you know when that happened? Is
Yeah.
it,
I can see what
so
that,
every time there's policies that are in more than one place, we would be aware of it?
Yes.
And we could change the policy wherever it appears.
it would be your choice to do it that way, yeah.
I think the idea of having these policies that are like in purgatory for 2 years
All right.
sounds very confusing.
And I think it sounds cumbersome in the fact that you could have a different committee by the time you finish this policy. They might say, oh, well, let's go back, because they're only informed.
Yeah, they're my
So-
predecessor, the districts that were multiple years. Approving it in form and then all at once is how we recommend it. It is at the discretion of the subcommittee. If you want to bring it to full committee for immediate adoption every time, you can definitely do that. I just want to make sure that when we do that, all eyes have been on it. We run it through the administration. We make sure your superintendent can see. We make sure that if it's something that legal counsel needs to see, that they see it before it gets approved and put into your plan.
And I think that that is a very good way to keep track of that too. Like you're gonna still do the first read, the second read. And if at the subcommittee level, we say, this is the section that we need the lawyers to look at, then we start that process and before we bring it up for people.
Okay, so knowing that's how you want to proceed, that's how it'll work.
Can we take a vote on that? How do people feel about that?
Yeah.
So how do you want the vote to say, moving forward, do you want to, approve per policy, or do you want to, or as opposed to
Wait,
form,
yeah.
inform?
Eileen, do you have a strong feeling about that?
No, I think what you guys are saying, I'm on the same page with, because I feel like didn't the last school committee meeting, we approved a new section, right?
Not
So,
a new section, but a handful of policies.
Right.
right, so I think if we continue in that format, it's keeping everybody aware and asking if they have any more questions going forward as well.
Okay.
Okay,
So would the policy be to approve per policy as opposed to form?
right. As we go.
To approve for immediate adoption
Okay.
instead of inform.
And do you think it makes sense to get the full, to get a vote on that?
Yeah, I'm just in case, sure, when in doubt.
Right.
When in doubt, post the meeting, when in doubt, vote. And then,
Well, instead of backing up.
yeah.
I think the others have already been adopted too on the
Well,
floor.
then, yeah,
Yeah.
the ones, the other G policies, yes, they have.
So approve to immediate adoption as opposed to,
Right, and so that was a motion made by Ms. Del Rossi.
second,
Stephanie. All those in favor? Aye.
Roll call.
Oh, we do?
Okay.
Have
Okay.
a member remote.
Oh, that's,
chairperson Doherty,
yes.
Mr. Conway,
Yeah.
Mr. Rossi.
Yes.
3-8.
Okay,
Okay.
so we'll get this one.
Next time, full G.
Okay.
Yeah. So your agenda has us started with, no, that's not it. Thank you, the bullying and harassment policy. So that would be mostly the, Title IX policies. Actually, though, the bullying and harassment policies are not the Title IX. They are the J policies from our section J to your section J. So when everyone's ready, we'll walk through all of them.
Yeah. Bullying harassment.
Okay, so the first policy up is JICFA, prohibition of hazing. This is an MASC only policy. You do not have a corresponding JICFA. You do, however, have something in section E that talks about hazing. For continuity's sake, we would recommend that you adopt the MASC version. It has been updated, it was updated in 2021, and it also puts it in the student section, which is where this policy should be.
I agree.
Okay.
Agree.
Yes.
Is there a definition of hazing?
I don't think they necessarily define, well, actually, yes. So the next policy,
Has it on
Dash.
second paragraph?
yeah, dash E after that. So, you actually had a JICFA dash E for Lowell, which I thought was weird because you didn't have one without the dash E, but you have the dash E. So I would recommend the MASC version of.
So was it the same as this?
No, what it is The JICFA is the policy, the dash E is the exhibit, and that's the definition book. So we would recommend the MASC version of the JICFA dash E. I hate the letters. Wait until we get into section E, I sound like a McDonald, we're like EEAEI. So,
So you wanted to have the dash sheet.
yes, I would recommend
Yeah.
the MASC version of the dash E
Okay.
policy because it aligns with our policy that you are missing.
So you're saying add the JICFA, because we don't have that. Go with the MASC version of JICFA-E.
Correct.
And then, one thing I noticed that was different, in the Lowell version of the dash E, it says not more than $1,000. They actually indicate a fine. And the MASC one says not more than $3,000.
So the MGL has changed since then. So I don't have a date on yours, but the MGL was updated around 2021.
Okay.
So that's why the MASC version is a different number. That actually, you'll see that in a couple places as we move through this, that especially in the purchasing policies, there have been some updates. So the MGL was updated, so that's why it says that.
So that's why your policy is more recent.
Yes.
It follows the law, the change in law. So do we need to go through each section of it? I mean, how do you want to proceed with the J section on bullying and harassment?
So we'll go policy by policy for just these that we have pulled out. This is not all of section J.
Okay.
This is just, when we talked on the phone, we talked about policies that you wanted to pull out that were most important, the things that you were missing, the things
Right.
where laws had changed, and this was one of them. So I pulled all of the policies that related to bullying and harassment and put them in one place.
Okay.
So we'll do more policies in J later, but you're going to batch approve
Yep.
these policies.
Okay. So how do you want to do it right now? Do you want to go?
So go through the whole thing, and then if you're accepting the changes, you'll make a motion and we'll list each of the individual policies in the motion to send to the full committee for first reading.
Got it.
Okay, so our next one is JICFE, bullying in school. This is another one where ours was updated. Yours is 2013 and ours is 2021. So I would recommend the language in the MASC policy.
Any questions on this section? My colleague.
No, I think it's important to be as updated as possible with as quickly as that's moving and changing even within the state. So I think that recommendation is very good.
And I think unless we have specific questions, we could probably move. I think we're on the same page and that we want to go with the most updated version.
Sure. We're very informed.
It says the investigation shall be completed within 14 school days.
Yes.
Is that an arbitrary date or is this?
No, I believe that comes from, that might be from the CMR.
Where was that?
It's on the bottom of the prevention and intervention plan, but it's funny, I had also noted that.
Yeah. So I can click through and see which one it is, but I can tell you that if we give you specifics in a policy, numbers, if there's numbers in the policy, it comes from either the Massachusetts general law or the federal law, or whatever act it was. We don't put specifics like that in policies unless it's required. So I would say, I would need to see which one of the MGLs it was, but that's definitely straight out of the MGL.
And actually, since we're, in the future, can we number the pages that would make it easier?
Yeah, and
The very next page had an area that jumped out at me, and I'm sure that, there's a reason for this, but it's saying whether disciplinary action has or shall be taken, at a minimum, the principal or their designee shall contact the parents or guardians as to the status of the investigation on a weekly basis.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's a pretty, I mean, first of all, I wasn't aware that we ever, maybe that's changed with the laws, that you ever even responded to families. It was always like, well, I can't tell you what the,
Well, sometimes the answer is,
I
I'm
can't.
checking in with you and I can't tell you the specifics of the investigation is ongoing. So sometimes that's what the check-in is.
But you also never
Yeah.
say what the consequences were.
Right.
Never tell a family.
Correct. You wouldn't tell my family the consequences are for your student. But you could say that the student, if the matter has been adjudicated or, you know, we're going through the investigation, et cetera. You give the family updates that way, but you couldn't give them specifics on those.
So that hasn't changed.
No, that's
just
just changed.
Very clear that we need to respond to families.
Yeah.
Even if you can't specifically say, just the outcome of the response.
Yeah.
I have a question on the bullying. If the seed of bullying takes place in school, but then it spills over into a different area, different place, outside, could be on the
Like the
sidewalk,
neighborhood.
across the street.
But there is a section on that.
We have, that,
So there are some things in the policies about what happens when it's filled out. I'm gonna tell you right now, though, school committee policies should be related directly to the MGL. And everything else should be the purview of the superintendent and the superintendent designee. So if there's something happening outside of the building, that becomes something that the superintendent, guidance, and SRO, someone like that would take over. That would never be part of what the school committee would do. So your policy is the scaffolding that enables the superintendent and the administration to then take the action they need to take.
because I think there was a case in Worcester that they brought it to court to recommend something. Again, seeds
Right.
took place.
Well, if you look at this blue draft note, again, I don't know exactly what page it is, but I think it's two back from when we spoke. That I wrote location specific, and that first paragraph, this one that says draft note. That first paragraph, it talks about, where it has to happen. So it's the alleged harassment must involve conduct that occurred within the school's own program or activities, such as whether there has been harassment occurred at a location or under circumstances where the school owned or substantially controlled the premises, exercise oversight. This policy is in effect when students are on school grounds, school property, or property within the jurisdiction of the school district, buses, or school-sponsored activities.
So the upshot is if something is happening entirely outside the school and it does not come into areas where the school has jurisdiction, it's outside of the school. Kids, they're gonna come into school, they're gonna talk about things, they could be interacting. At that point, it becomes something that the administration could intervene.
If it gets brought into the school, so
Brought
if it happens on the other side of town in some park or whatever, but then it gets brought into the
If
school.
it carries over,
It's on that thing where we're still on a day.
Yeah, I know, I'm looking, I don't see it.
So essentially, we just need to follow the MGL on this, and then it's up to the administration on how they deal with it. And I guess I can speak to having a child in the district who's had various social media and phone and after school things. And I can say there hasn't been one issue that the principals haven't followed through on. They've been incredible and have helped the students, my son, work through it. So I have confidence in issues being dealt with.
Right.
Right.
So this is the way to safeguard us.
yes.
They'll still deal with it. But in terms of what we put down in the policy. So this is all still the J section.
Individual policies out of J.
Right. So that was very, very much the end.
But that was the bullying prevention policy. There's one more policy in that section.
Okay, which one is that?
JICK for reference.
Oh, that's the one I was just talking about.
Yeah.
That's why we were confused.
Oh, well, I thought-
Yeah,
J.
I just figured that out. Well, so the J section is all students, but then each individual policy has its own letters. And there's a lot of crossover related.
I'm sorry. Well, I think it was all stapled together. It's all J. Okay, so do we need anything else?
Well, does anyone have any questions on that last policy, JICK?
Any questions on JICK? Dave already asked that question.
So that's adopt MASCs as well.
Yeah.
I think for my thought on that, probably need to call it. But except for.
Well, it's the same, yeah.
We're not doing that.
Right.
Everything else with that.
Absolutely. So the motion you would make, if you're ready to send these 4 policies to the full committee, the motion you make is motion to send JICFA, JICFA-E, JICFB, and JICK to the committee, to the full committee for a first read.
Who wants to make that motion?
Gonna get yelled at.
You can just say so moved.
Yeah, yes, yeah.
When you're reading the language, you can just say so moved.
So moved.
Yep.
Mr. Conway, seconded by Ms. Del Rossi. Roll call?
Chairperson Doherty,
Yes.
Mr. Conway,
Yes.
Mr. Rossi.
Yes.
3 yeas.
Okay, let me pause right here for a second and ask, when is your next full committee?
November 6th.
No, next
Oh,
Wednesday,
next Wednesday, that's what it's.
November 1st, I believe. No, November 6th, yeah,
Okay, when do you post your agenda?
Friday.
Friday? Okay.
And it'll be a question whether these minutes will be completed. Yeah,
I
I
will
mean, it's
send
only
you-
2 days.
So you have the changes, but what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna send you again a document with the changes. I'll put the page numbers back in. They disappeared from Google to Word. I'll put the page numbers back in. I will send you the changes and the theme for each chunk of policies that we do so that you can send them to the full committee. Okay,
And then it's good that they're this way, you know, that they're stapled by section.
Correct.
okay. So the next set of policies would be the Title IX policies. There was an update, as we all know, of the federal government this year. Over the summer, we had our legal counsel take a look at them. I will say this about our Title IX policies. Yes, you can approve them here and send them to your full committee. I would also recommend that they take a stop at your district legal counsel first, though, before they go to the full committee. So what I would say is, yeah, if you, okay. So here's what I would say is, you can take a look at them now. Don't send these to your full committee with the rest of them. Send these to your district legal counsel. And then when they're done with them, they can go to the full.
That sounds good.
Something all today that you talked about was solicitor on Thursday or Friday and responded to
It's worth it to take the time to get it.
Yeah, and we don't have to rush it.
Yeah.
So we can, so which ones were, is it all the eighties?
It's not all of them, it's all of the ones in
Why
your,
are we discussing this now? So they.
you don't have to, but if you have any questions about what I sent you, because there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 policies. Is that right? Yes, there are 6 policies. Almost all of them are changes to policies you currently have, but there are 2 that you do not have that will be bringing policies to you. So you don't have to approve them tonight, you can wait for the council to say.
No, I mean,
But I
why do this? We don't know.
Well, I did have a couple of questions, and I think it was related to Title IX, but it's more internal. I don't know if you can help me answer. So what were the ones?
So, AC, so if anyone has any questions, shout them out. AC is non-discrimination. We are now calling this the non-discrimination policy, including harassment and retaliation. And again, we would recommend the MASC version of that
Okay,
with your legal counsel blessing. Then we have AC-R, which is the procedure that goes with the non-discrimination policy. We spend a lot of time telling you all, please don't put procedures in your policy manual. This is one of those times where we have to say you have to put a procedure in your policy manual because the law requires the procedure to be with the policy.
so I'm looking at, if we go to that next one, ACR. You guys updated it July 2024, so it's brand new.
Yes.
And on the third page, it asks for, you name who is, and I'm just wondering, this is my question, who is our Title IX person? You are, okay.
Our student handbook, but in these
Yeah.
policies, it be listed in the policy.
Okay,
We almost never tell you, to put someone's name and title and contact information into a policy, except here. It has to be here by statute. So you have to add that. That would be one of the things that we would do before we would send it to the full committee, is to put all of that information in.
so then further down, just to ask some questions, file ACA.
Yep.
Notice that you are the Title IX compliance officer too, it's the same role. Okay,
A quick question. Again, I should know. Will all this material be in a student handbook?
So
And the reason why I say that, I've been at many meetings with the lawyers, and the first thing they say is, I've gone through the student handbook, there's nothing in there that corresponds to the penalty that it's talking about. Yeah, you know what I mean? So I'm just wondering, I mean, a shop lawyer is gonna look at, that's the first thing they do, is they look at the student handbook.
you absolutely can take the policy and drop it directly into 100%.
I think that, you know, we should get some advice on the lawyer on that, because what happens if covers.
is that what
Maybe.
you're recommending that people do?
I'm not recommending that. I'm telling you to ask your district council how they want you to do that. What I'm telling you is you need this in your policy manual. Handbooks are school committee approval, and they are school committee approval with the administration and the advice of the legal counsel. So when you talk to the administration and the legal counsel, they will tell you how much needs to be in the handbook. It could be something as simple as a reference to your
Right.
policy, or it could be an entire procedure.
Right, you could say policy file, ACAB or whatever that way.
Whatever
Okay, yeah,
your legal
so
counsel
it's,
tells you.
right, okay,
Okay,
I just feel more
so
Oh, I
that,
agree.
safe.
so that was really my only question, just who we had. So if you want to wait till we hear back from legal counsel.
Yeah.
Just thought,
Question for your investigator, it said elementary level, high school, middle, all staff, decision maker, field officer. Is that, are those different people or?
It may not be different people depending on the district. Scrolling furiously here. It may not necessarily be different people depending on the district. That's something that the superintendent would, help you fill in.
I just, get it at the end of that section.
So that is district
But you-
specific.
But meaning that you're naming people again.
Yeah.
You're naming people for each level that are going to handle. And then I noticed earlier you specifically, the policy specifically talks about a conflict of interest. And if somebody is investigating a situation that, you know, I forget how it was worded, but information about the. Right. All right, so. Any other thoughts about this section when we send this off or to get legal blessing, right?
Right.
Okay,
So,
Excellent.
okay,
So you don't
we're gonna
need to do
ask,
anything.
we're gonna ask whether, was it Jim? Yeah, we're gonna ask whether that should be dropped into the.
Sure, I haven't got a response to it. So-
Right. And the other thing too is, you know, sometimes some of these things are more germane to a certain level.
Mhm.
I'm just wondering how we cover all of these three levels.
Right. Right. So procedures are administrative, that's the review of the administration. So once the policies are approved, the administrators would then take it, so your superintendent would then take it back to their administrators, their principals, guidance,
We
authorities.
have a consistency
Yeah,
with the appropriate age in mind.
yep, that would be part of what they do with their leadership committee, is that would trickle down into each of the buildings at the age appropriate level. It would end up in the correct handbooks with the correct language. Do you have one handbook for the entire district, or do you have like a middle and elementary and high school? So you do.
I would assume you three.
Elementary, you know?
So that the administrators with whom the handbooks originate would tailor the language appropriate to that age level. Okay.
I'm just trying to think of
Yeah.
some of these questions that come to me.
No,
So
that's
they
fine.
have the availability of that student handbook. Everyone will have that ability, is that correct? To access the student handbook right now.
Is your handbook online?
Yes.
So after policies get approved, there would be an update to the handbook. So when you approve the Title IX policies, the harassment policies, if language needed to be changed in the handbook to correspond, that's, you would do that after you change the policy.
And you have lots of changes you put in the amendment.
To the handbook, yes. Yes. If a law changes at the state level or the federal level, NASD will very often send you a blast email that says, hey, this policy was updated.
Some rarely happens.
Well, especially now that you're so intimately involved with us, because we're gonna have a policy that you guided us. Yeah, we'll know. What about when we need to update our handbooks? Do you help with that too?
We don't usually do handbooks, as a project, but as your field director, if you have some questions and you wanted to send some language, like vote by, see if it aligns, that's definitely something we can give you feedback on.
I
But
know
we
that-
don't do like,
In the past, we used to, well, I'm just taking the high school level, we would all sit down. And it would take quite a while. We'd spend literally week after week. I don't mean, you know, every day. Everybody figuring out.
a lot of thought.
And then what we do is we would mark that up every single year, like, I don't know about this, I think there was a law change. And then before that went to print, then that's when we would sit down with the lawyers, we give them a copy of, you know, the possibility of changing it, right? And then the lawyer then would make the changes and say, this is fine, or whatever. Sometimes they'll say, look, we've got some updates on this law hasn't been changed or whatever.
Yep, sometimes
Yeah,
the
I
legal
agree.
counsel will get the update before we do.
Right, it's good to bring them into it.
Oh,
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
probably. And I guess I'm thinking even with the cell phone policy.
Yes.
They came up with a different approach. It was a whole task force and all kinds of thought, but I mean, we always had no cell phones out, period. I don't know what we're doing with the lower level now.
Right. I had the same question, Jackie, that I was thinking. So is there an MGL on cell phone policy within the state, or is our cell phone policy a procedure?
It's so a lot of districts are creating a cell phone policy. But I'm telling you right now that most of those policies are procedure heavy. There is no model policy from us on cell phones. There is no NGL. Other than your use of the digital resources in the district. If a kid is on their cell phone and they're hitting your Wi-Fi, they have to use the Wi-Fi within the district's digital acceptable use policy. Beyond that, we don't have policies and there are no laws about whether or not a kid can have a cell phone in school. It's been district by district, sometimes even school by school, classroom by classroom.
I'm not interested in school by school.
No, and my own committee has developed a cell phone procedure that was universal for all of the teachers so that it was more uniform, but there is no model policy on that.
So we came up with a policy based on the task force that was put together by the high school teachers. because they really saw it as being a problem. And I think we did a year pilot, we're in our second year now. But I'm not sure what, so that's something you've got to be thinking about too, what the middle school is set up. Because I know when my kids were in, if you didn't take your phone, we did our. So we're done with, AC.
Yep, you're gonna send those to your legal counsel.
Right.
And if there's feedback by the time we meet again, we'll go back over them. We will do section G next time, but I also will start merging the next set of sections.
Okay.
So if the Title IX feedback comes back at the same time that I do section A, we'll just do it all at once. If it's separate, we'll do it separate.
Right, so we should, when you talk to them, Dr. Hall, the council, the attorney, if we could have it for our next meeting, so that gives them a month, right? So that's a reasonable.
Yeah, not this meeting, but the.
Right. Subcommittee, the next subcommittee.
All will decide the title on policies and how to ask if you want to look it up for the future.
No?
We haven't gotten to anything but this section. So,
Yeah.
Would we have to make a motion on the floor for the whole school committee to have it go to legal and to have it back by the next subcommittee meeting?
No,
No, okay.
we need to ask for the committee, but we can report out.
Yeah.
When we talk about the subcommittee meeting that we've done that. But I don't think we need to ask them to look at it.
especially not since you've already engaged legal in this process. When we first started meeting in
Right.
the summer, legal was here with us and we talked about some of your priorities. So you've already engaged legal in the process. You don't need to make an additional motion. You should absolutely report out that this is what happened with the subcommittee, but you don't need to make an additional motion.
Okay, good. All right, so let's go to the next section.
Excellent. So the next section are the 3 nutrition policies. So they are the E policies. First up is 2 policies that we had we ready for the summer. Massachusetts now has full universal free meals at each at each meal interval. It's not just free lunch. If you serve breakfast, everyone's entitled to a breakfast. If you serve lunch, everyone's entitled to a lunch. So with this one, your EF is your food service management policy. We would recommend our new universal free school meal, which is EFC. And that is based on the universal free school meals that passed in Massachusetts just recently, got completely right last summer.
Excellent. I actually had a question about that. So on that page, universal free school meal, you have your first bullet says it remains important that families complete the household application. Yeah, your second bullet says district participating at no cost without collecting. So
you can participate without collecting. The problem is that used to be our mechanism for finding your Title I students, like the 3 reduced lunch forms, right? Now that everyone has universal free lunch, people don't necessarily have to fill out the form. So until they figure out a different method to track that, we're still trying to get districts that have families fill out those forms.
okay.
So that we can still identify the students who might need extra help.
And I
Because it isn't a replacement mechanism yet.
So I think there was a year that we actually had negative consequences because it must have been before that whole CEP thing that we didn't have the eligibility forms to match what we said we had for free reduced lunch students, and we didn't get as much money back. So that's why I wanted to be clear, we're not punished if we don't.
So what DESI is looking for as far as the forms, there is no replacement mechanism yet, so as much as you can encourage the forms, but there's also, if you are receiving federal funds, that's a different story. If you're receiving federal funds for lunches, this is just for the Massachusetts. The MGLs, which one was it? It's so the USDA school meal program is separate. That's the federal one. The Chapter 28 of the Acts of 2023, that's Massachusetts. So that's the one that this policy is most leaning on. And that's, still have them fill out the forms if you can.
Got it.
But
But there's no consequence if you don't, if you're,
I don't know.
oh,
I don't know what the federal consequence, because I don't know if there's a federal consequence.
Oh.
In Massachusetts,
but I do,
Yeah.
so we are still trying to get those forms.
yeah, yeah. absolutely.
Okay,
So the policy that comes after that one, it was originally your EFC. We call it EFD. This is the, it used to be the free and reduced lunch service, or food services policy. What we've instead put in place is the school nutrition program charge policy. So everyone gets a free one meal at each meal interval.
right.
If you're going to get a second meal, if some districts charge for, like, if you're gonna get a brownie, they charge for brownie. If you're gonna get 2 slices of pizza instead of 1 slice of pizza. There's a mechanism that you can still charge a la carte. Some districts do, some districts don't. So this is one that I would say, if you're still charging a la carte, you can do it this way with this policy, but you might want to have your food services department just take a look at this and make sure it's still aligned. Are you still charging for a la carte?
I believe we are changing those, yeah. Did that come into you, sir?
Yes, I believe we do, but I don't remember.
Okay.
So let's send this one to food services, just to
Yep.
get there.
EFD.
They are under the office.
Oh, okay. All right. So did they review it and they're okay with it going to the full committee? Okay, then we don't need to send it back to them again if they've already.
You've already seen it.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome.
Okay.
So we can move forward with this then.
Yeah. And then the last one in this section is EFE. This is a brand new policy. It's MASC only. A lot of districts are getting tagged by DEFI for not having this policy. My own district did, we didn't have it. It's the civil rights complaint policy for the child nutrition programs. You're not allowed to discriminate in any program you have in the district. If there is a complaint, you need to have a procedure for that. You need to have a mechanism for that family to lodge the complaint. Essentially, if a student allergy, if a student has religious accommodation, you cannot discriminate against them even in food services. So this is being required by DEFI for all districts to have this policy.
So it's protecting you, that we don't discriminate.
Right.
But does this mean like if somebody says, I need a vegetarian meal, is that where that would come into the food?
I am not a
Peanut
lawyer.
allergies.
Yeah, I'm not a lawyer, so I'm not going to answer that question. I would say your district legal counsel and the complaint policy that's linked in that policy, that's the complaint procedure, would better explain that. I can just tell you that the policy is being required.
That's why it's being asked. Okay.
Yep.
All right, so any questions about the food service policy?
How do they handle that? Somebody that, peanut allergy.
I thought they had peanut-free school.
Do they?
The elementary, I remember that the elementary level or a classroom maybe, it's got to get to protect.
What?
All right, so any questions, Del Rossi, on the food service piece? No? Are we ready to move forward with the motion? Okay, the motion should state,
Send EFC, EFD, and EFE to the full committee for first reading.
sounds
Okay.
good, roll call.
We need a first, and a second.
Oh, first, motion by Mr. Conway, second by Ms. Del Rossi.
Chairperson Doherty,
Yeah,
Mr. Conway?
Yes.
Mr. Rossi?
Yes.
3 yeas.
Okay. So the last couple of policies I have for you tonight are the handbook policies. They're the C policies, and we're starting with CHA. First one up is CHA, approval of handbooks and directives. This is what you see in your packet is full with MASC updates. We have removed that first paragraph and inserted a different first paragraph. We've also updated the grammatical his/her to there. Again, we're doing that in the whole manual, children to students, et cetera, assistance districts. And then we also added a cross-reference for review of procedures. Does anyone have any questions about CHA?
This is the one for the city handbook. Yep. I've got questions.
So, the elementary middle
Yes,
is community school. So,
yes. So I think we can let's change that to principals, oralize it, because you do have many lower, middle and elementary. Are there any other places where you can see there might be something district specific that we want to adjust there? I'm going to oralize the school councils.
And you're talking about the school site councils.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
is there a reason you specifically mentioned the disciplinary policy?
Because your handbook should always contain disciplinary policies, so when you're updating your handbook, that's one of the places you always want to make sure you're updating it. But yeah, it's kind of funny that it's all disciplinary without anything else. Okay. I would say though that discipline and graduation requirements are probably the two places parents go to the handbooks for most often. So. Yeah, that's a big deal. I assume you're not AI, but no, I don't have a model policy on that. Moving too fast. Okay. Model policy. Moving too fast. Okay, so are we good with the edits to CHA? CHCA.
I'm good. Any questions about CHCA, Ms. Della?
Nope.
Okay, go to the next one.
Okay.
So you're saying we take this one out completely?
Yeah, the dash E, the approval, because the approval is,
The procedure.
so the title of this is approval of handbooks and directives, but then it goes into some very procedural language. I'm not entirely sure how it's added as a title and this is in your policy. Because it says things like students found on school premises, that's handbook language, that's not even a policy, but it doesn't match the title, so I would say move this all together. Doesn't belong here. Any procedures related to these things, which are clearly what happens if you're in violation, there's language about expulsion in here, all of that belongs in there. That would not belong here. There are policies that will talk about that, but they talk about it from that 30,000 foot scaffolding level. They don't talk about it procedurally, so I would remove this policy.
Okay. All right, so the motion for this would be accept CHCA.
And remove, yeah. You
Yep.
might just send CHCA to the full committee for first reading and to remove CHCA -E.
Motion by Mr. Rossi, second by Mr. Conway. All those in favor, roll call.
Chairperson Doherty?
Yes.
Mr. Conway?
Yes.
Mr. Rossi?
Yes.
3 yeas.
Okay. So I believe that's all that we had on the agenda for tonight for specific policy review. So next time we're going to talk about G, and I will be merging the rest of your sections. Generally, it's up to the committee how you want to go. Clearly, we can always pull out policies, and we have done so tonight. If you wanted, we can do G next. I go to the hiring policies. We want to make sure that's all cleaned up. So we have G next. Beyond that, are there any other priorities for you? When we're talking about our policy section, I can tell you that section A is foundations and basic commitments. That's essentially, again, that's where all of your Title IX and ethics policies are. So as soon as we get those, merge them. Section B is board governance, things like agendas and organizational meetings and school committee officers. Section C is general school administration, policy implementation, evaluating the superintendent, administration and policy absence, those sort of policies. Section D is all of your financial policies. That's gonna require extra oversight from your finance office. Support services is section E, so that is where all of your transportation policies, first aid, civil rights, school lunch policies, we just did those, all of those are in section E. Section F is one of our tiny sections, it's facilities development. And then section G, personnel. Section H is also tiny, it's negotiations with 3 policies. Section I is instruction, that one is large and often requires a lot of discussion about policies, because it is about instruction. And then section J is all the students, all the other student policies. Section K is community relations, and then section L is another tiny one, it's education agency relations, so relationships with non-public schools and with MASC and things like that. So are there sections you feel like you might want to move to the top?
I'm just gonna say for myself, I think we could start with A after we get past G.
G. Yep.
And then once we hear back from the attorneys about, you know,
Well, that's A.
oh, that's A.
Policy for A.
Right. But I mean, I do like the idea of starting from the beginning. We don't have to hop around.
No,
Only for those ones that were most pressing. But now that we're in the process, I mean, unless somebody feels strongly that one of these needs to,
no, let's just follow along.
there's a certain order to it that ends.
Yeah, yeah.
Would you say that we're looking at a multi-year process, or are you?
Well, that's how it was presented.
So here's the thing. Contract says 3 years, you pay over 3 years. It doesn't always say 3 years. There are some districts where, yes, there's the turnover and languishes and you have to start it back up. But I have multiple districts who have finished. They started last fall with me, they're finishing their last year now.
That would be my goal, to do it in a year. And we started in the summer. And I think, you know, because basically we are so outdated with our policy, unless there's stuff that MASC has that people have strong, you know, suggestions, we have strong feelings again. I feel like it's going to be fairly smooth, but that's me.
We can move at whatever pace you want to move at. We can try and, so what I can do is we can go in order, but if I know that there's some sections that we can lump together, like F, H, and L, because they're like three policies.
The little ones, yeah.
Policies. I usually squish those together and put those with another section.
Yeah.
We can do that all in one. So I would say maximum a year and a half, but yeah, definitely.
And I think we're making good progress, and we're trying to keep it to an hour. And so we're looking at, if we were gonna do it in a month, what's the date for that?
November's a short month, so,
Yeah.
We have holidays.
yeah.
So,
Maybe the beginning of December.
The end of the month,
The
is
last
28th.
Thursday.
But we have a meeting the 4th and the 18th, and we're off the 11th. I'm sorry, we have a meeting the 6th and the 20th, we're off the 11th. And then we're out the 27th, 28th, 29th, which is that Thanksgiving.
Right.
So today,
The 11th is Veterans Day, right?
Correct. Yeah,
so that's a Monday.
that's a Monday.
We could do the 12th.
No, I think the 11th is it a Monday?
It's
Yeah.
Monday, yeah.
The Veterans Day, and you can't do the 12th.
I can't do this one.
What about the 19th?
That's Tuesday. I can do that.
I think Tuesday night's a good night to do it.
You have a meeting on the 20th, just so you know, you'll be up back that night,
Yeah,
as long as that's okay by you.
I don't mind. Thanks.
I can do it whenever.
Yeah, so we're looking at the 20th or the 26th, which is a couple of days before
The
Thanksgiving.
19th or the 20th.
I'm sorry, the 19th or the 26th.
The 2 Tuesdays at the end.
So
of
would you
November.
rather be out the Tuesday before Thanksgiving or the Tuesday before that, which is the school committee meeting the next day? I'd rather get them not be on top of Thanksgiving,
Right.
because I'm gonna be entertaining, so I'll be trying to get stuff done after work. If that's okay with you guys, Eileen, can you do the 19th? Yeah?
Yeah, I can do the 19th.
And we still have that option of if people wanna zoom in instead of coming in person.
Absolutely.
And we can, see how the week is looking
So
for
the
the
19th, right?
Yeah.
at 6:30.
Yeah.
Is that time okay for you?
Yeah, absolutely. So I would, let's make sure, at least as long as the state allows us to, let's keep that Zoom option too through the winter, because if we end up with a day that, if
Crap.
school cancels, we may not necessarily have a meeting, but if there's like pretty weather and no one wants to ride,
Right, a nice.
or if not, the state has left it with us at least for now, so we can always have it out. And knowing that we're gonna meet on the 19th, I don't see why I can't have G and A, and then I'm gonna just start merging after that.
Right.
So that I can feed them to you as fast as I possibly can.
And then we'll be able to do the section when we know we've got the feedback then. And we should, I would think a couple, enough, I know that it's secret. I liked having the opportunity to look at the stuff beforehand too,
Yeah.
so I could see where I had questions.
And so it's definitely, it's a little slow in the beginning, but now that I know where you wanna go, how you wanna go, it'll move a lot faster.
Yeah.
It'll get to you faster, you'll get back faster.
Sounds like a great thing. Motion to adjourn, by Mr. Conway, seconded by Ms. Del Rossi.
Chairperson Doherty,
Yes.
Mr. Conway,
Yeah.
Mr. Rossi.
Absolutely, yes.